So Vader, I added Vader. What did you think? I'm curious to know your opinion.
Which album was this again?
I put Litany on there. Litany.
Litany. I'm sure I did hear it. I might not be able to remember very well. Let me have a look. I might not have heard this one, you know. I can't remember.
Really?
I'm sure I did. I recognise it. Hang on. No, I did hear it. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah, love Vader. They're great. I've seen them. I saw them open for Testament. About 6-7 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, I watched them live when I can't remember what year it was, like maybe 2013 or something, 2012, 14, 13, something around that time. Anyway, I watched them at White Rabbit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were really good. Honestly, I really enjoyed them. Litanies are great. Again, going back to the Gateway albums, I think this is a really good Gateway album for those who want to get into death metal.
Yeah, I'd probably agree.
Definitely some decent riffs in there as well. I feel like it's also a good example of sort of mixing. What do you say? It's like death mix with thrash.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like I put it in this though because obviously it's more. I would say it's more on the death side, but I think it's a nice show of getting into sort of the more extreme genres from thrash to death. Well, if you go from like thrash to death or death to thrash, I feel like this is a good album for that. So, I suppose I don't know if that's the only thing that really stands out because obviously thrash and death being mixed together is not necessarily anything that new. It's just more like I think this was just a good blend of the two genres, but it's more on the death side. If you get my drift.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, apart from that though, I think Vader's also have interesting history with metal because Vader were there at the time where Death and Possessed were there too. They were originally just a speed metal band. They were just speed metal, but they were at the time of that era of metal.
Yeah, sure.
They didn't really evolve into thrash and then death until a little bit later. There is a live recording called Decay from 1986, and that is really heavy. Like it's on par with like Bathory heavy at the time. So again, bearing lines in that sort of extreme metal development of Black Death and thrash in there as well. However, I feel like it was more in '89 with Necrolust demo that they became more death metal, I feel. However, before that, they had this more sort of just general blend of extreme metal, black, like lo-fi, sort of black death thrash sound. So I think it's important to mention them in the sort of development of the genre, though they might not necessarily be anything new at the time. I think they were around, pushing the boundaries. It just wasn't really until later that they became much more known. So I wanted to point that out too.
And they're, along with bands like Behemoth, they're a great example of the Polish metal scene as well.
Exactly it. I think I would like to go into them. However, there's a few bands I want to mention in the 90s I forgot to mention, which was At the Gates and Opeth. Just very briefly. Opeth, because they took kind of elements of progressive and melodic metal with the death metal sound, create their own sort of sound, you could say, with Orchard and Blackwater Park and stuff. However, I don't want to obviously go in too much into Opeth until we get to progressive metal. I feel like they're really important for that, as you would agree.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if you want to add anything else to that before we mention.
No, I mean I agree with you, but especially an album like Orchid and the follow-up Morning Rise. It's like it was really out there for death metal at the time, and I'd argue that it has a lot of black metal elements as well. Mostly in the atmosphere and the kind of like the emotions of those two records. And Blackwater Park is widely considered one of the greatest prog metal albums ever made. It definitely has its death metal elements. Like, it does have like double bass drumming and like incredible growling from Michael Ackerfeld, their frontman. But
Yeah,
put it this way: if someone said, "I want to listen to some proper death metal," I probably wouldn't give them Opeth. But if someone said, "I want to hear some proper like heavy prog metal," Opeth would be one of the first bands I'd give them to listen to.
sounds like a plan. Yeah, I think that's a good point
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
mean,
And I
Opeth are
think
probably my favorite band. So, you know, I'm
I
controlling
you've been
myself to
it.
wait to talk about them later on.
I was going to mention you've been itching like a bitch to want to talk about Opeth. So
It's
I get it.
if it's not Opeth, it's Meshuggah or Devon Townsend. They're like my top three go-to artists at the moment.
He loves them. He loves them. I mean, they're great, but he really likes them. I want to mention At the Gates as well.
Yeah,
Slaughter to of the Soul. Again, I know this is more in the melodic death scene, but I want to just point out that was an important album for death metal and metal as a whole. Obviously, like Blinded by Fear is properly the most famous riff or song within the whole Gothenburg scene, which we'll get into in a later video.
yeah,
Some other great lists, and I think that as well, this album was also important for the development of metalcore as well.
yeah,
So like
definitely.
how this is like kind of like the gateway between going from death metal to melodic death metal into metalcore. That makes sense. Borderline in between those two aspects. So I think it's important to mention that. But I won't
Yeah,
again. I'll probably focus more on At the Gates as a whole when we get into melodic death too.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now, at the
I
Gates is
don't.
great. They got some really, really cool stuff.
Excuse me. Yeah, fantastic band. I think I really like the singer's voice.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I don't know if I missed anyone. No, I don't. So I'm hoping that's the end of the 90s. Unless I've missed anyone, we'll find out. I wanted to mention another band, Septic Flesh.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I know you like these, so I'll let you lead this on.
So they're one of my more recent discoveries. Excuse me. I was
Oh, that was
aware of their
deep.
I was aware of their drummer before I knew he was from that band. The
Oh,
drummers, well, the current drummer, I forget the guy's name now, which is awful. Krim or Kerim Lechner. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They're from Greece, right? Septic
mm,
Flesh. Um, if someone said, "What do they play?" I'd be like, "Well, symphonic death metal. That's what it is."
yeah.
Like there isn't really a lot of wiggle room around there. So the albums we listened to, the first one was Sumerian Demons from 2003, which
Okay.
is like, wow. I remember listening to this and just going like, fuck hell, this is intense. Some amazing tracks. The one, I mean, okay, so before I move on to Communion, what did you think about Sumerian Demons?
Oh, okay. Um, I mean, Sumerian Demons, great. I feel like it's a great example of symphonic death metal at its proper level.
Yeah,
Not just a keyboard synth added in a little bit type of thing, but like it's a full-on orchestra
yeah,
going on with it. Like it's a big predominant part of the music, and uh, I feel like though I would like to mention the band Haggard was
sure.
before it as a fantastic blend and definitely brought the scene to life more. But I feel like these guys kind of just straight up took what Haggard did and just made it perfect almost. If that
Yeah,
makes sense. They
basically, yeah.
had they Haggard started it, they perfected it, like, put it that way, in terms of that symphonic, deaf, full on orchestrated sound. Um and I feel like they took it a bit heavier than what Haggard did as well. Able
Yeah,
and I mean, obviously as an album, no, I mean it's a fantastic album. Like I really like the song Unbeliever. Um but I mean, there's not much else I can add. It's just a great
yeah.
album.
So after this album, then they disbanded for a bit, didn't they? They split up, and then they got back together and put out the album Communion, which is of the two Septic Flesh albums I've heard, this is my favourite one. Although I will point out, if you've
Yes.
got the Wikipedia article there with you, the original artwork is fine. The limited edition digipack artwork is a lot stronger, I feel, even though it looks a lot like another band, which we're going to talk about in a second because we missed them from the 90s, but we'll get to them.
No, did
Communion.
we? Crap.
That's okay. We
Sorry,
can go
go on.
back because I can talk about them. I'm really looking forward to talking about them, but you'll find out who they are. Yes, so Communion by Septic Flesh. What a record. I'm going to be really boring and say Anubis is my favourite song just because I love that main, like the main kind of theme, that da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's just so cool. Who wrote that?
I'll be
'Cause it's
honest.
so good.
I'll be honest, Anubis is my favorite too. I literally wrote it
It's
down.
so
I can
good,
show you
though.
here. I wrote it down here. Anubis is the best song.
It's amazing. It's so good.
It's amazing
I
song.
really cannot wait because I'm going to Bloodstock, as I'm sure I mentioned again. I'm going to Bloodstock. It's my fourth time this year. Septic Flesh are playing on the main stage. I'm so excited to see them, and I really just can't wait for that moment when Anubis starts. I'm going to be right in that pit.
That's going to be cool.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be footage of me going like Anubis.
that was quite well executed. That was good. I like that. That was quite deep. What's the original artwork? I'm trying to find it. Oh
So-
yeah, I see. I know what band you're talking about.
Another one of my absolute favorites, but we'll get to them when we get to them.
I would like to talk about them.
Yeah, so while Anubis is an amazing song, the whole album is great from start to finish. And again, 38 minutes, the perfect length for a death metal record.
Yeah, I feel like my perfect length for any album is sort of between, for death metal, I feel like anything from 40 to 50 minutes is ideal to me.
It really depends what it is.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, like, if we're talking about normal death metal, I think if you're talking about old school, just general old school death, I feel like 35 to 40 minutes is good. However, it's a bit more, if it's a bit more complex, it's got more to it, like this type of thing, I think you can get away with more 40 to 45, maybe even 50 minutes.
I feel like something like Once Upon the Cross, one of my favorite death metal albums ever by Deicide, is 28 minutes, right? Any longer, and that'd be too long. The whole point, it's meant to be like a quick, short, sharp shock to your system that just goes like, it's just him shouting about how much he hates Jesus for 28 minutes. It's like, cool.
Awesome. Glenn just being edgy again.
Even by today's standards, I still find Deicide very heavy to listen to. But then a band like Opeth, right? Blackwater Park is over an hour long. But bear in mind, over half the tracks are 10 minutes plus, and they have loads of different movements and sections in them. It's only got like 8 songs, I think, on that album, 8 or 9 songs. But most of them are like 10, 11, 12 minutes long. So that's why. But then that's more of a progressive journey. Tool are notorious for like, they purposefully fill the CD with as much as it can take before they have to put on a second disc. And that's why a lot of albums are just a bit... It's why like the album Anima is full of weird interludes. But we will get to Tool when we get to prog metal, because Tool are very important and they're one of my absolute favourites of all time. So, but you know, Tool are certainly not death metal. They're nowhere near death metal. So we're going to talk about them later on.
For sure. I would like, that'd be quite exciting to listen to Tool and talk about them. I agree though with what you're saying, and I feel like before we move on to the band that you mentioned that you want to talk about, I would like to mention Haggard's Awakening the Centuries, because we just mentioned them. I just mentioned them briefly while we're talking about Septic. I wanted to mention, obviously, again, it's more of a symphonic with a folk twist with the Death Doom blend going on, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm pretty sure.
I say again, more death.
Well.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I was just saying it's more death emphasis than Doom, though. I would say it's just got elements of Doom, like kind of like Amorphis did. I feel like Septic Flesh definitely took it further. But this band definitely made the mark and paved the way for them, like I mentioned, basically. some great melodies, and self-titled song stays in my head a lot. It's very catchy, and I love the blend of the female vocals with the male scream a bit more with the Haggard. I do like that as well. It's got a bit more of a
Yeah.
different aesthetic.
So I found out I haven't heard that album, Awakened Centuries by Haggard. I've heard of it because when I've been working on the symphonic metal list, which we'll tweak no doubt at some point later on, that's one of the albums on there. So
yeah, that's fair.
We
can talk about it a bit more. Yeah, I just want to mention this is kind of I feel like this is the first deaf symphonic mix that's full on deaf symphonic, not just bits of symphonic, but full on. And I think Deceptive Flesh took it heavier and further with it. That's the only difference, really. I suppose you can briefly mention Flesh God Apocalypse, because I know they've been really big doing what the same genre, but I feel like they were just after Septic Flesh. And also, I think Septic Flesh are better than Flesh God. No offense to Flesh God. I think it's just so over the top to the point where it's hard to take it a bit seriously. Like, you got the fucking blast beats reaching way over 200 BPM here, man. I know you're a good drummer, but calm the fuck down.
I'm having a conversation with I'm not going to name them, but a mutual acquaintance of ours who who I'm talking about, saying like, I don't like it when they use programmed drums, and I'm like, dude, you listen to Flesh God Apocalypse. There's no way a human's playing that. Like, fuck
it's
off.
It's kind of like that. At the same time, you can play really fast live. I've heard it live. And I'm like,
this is true. Yeah, I mean, I agree.
So,
with you.
like,
I do.
He probably did do programming in the studios to make it a little bit more cleaner, but the fact that he can play it live is really impressive.
But then I don't know how much of that is triggered or not. Like, I just don't know. But yeah,
you don't know.
I love Flesh God Apocalypse. I think they're really good. The name is incredible. You have to admit, Flesh God Apocalypse. That's a fucking band name. But
yeah,
I'm like you. I do prefer Septic Flesh.
Much
don't get me wrong. I love blast beats and pianos. It's a bit exhausting after a while. I'd love to see Flesh God play at Bloodstone. I think they'd be a really fun band to see live.
Oh yeah, they're really good. Yeah. I definitely prefer them. I can take them more seriously. I feel like Flesh God gets so much of ridiculous territory sometimes. I feel like I can't take this too seriously. I'm sorry, Flesh God. You're great musicians, but
it's like Dragon Force. I really do love early Dragon Force. I think they're great. I get people who don't like them. I completely understand why someone wouldn't like them. I do get it. They are a very silly band. But, the new stuff is shit. But that's just my opinion.
I can't argue. Anyway, we'll go into what you were talking about earlier, that band.
Yes. Can you guess who they are, Reagan?
Deep in the Egyptian valleys lies a river.
The premier ancient Egyptian death metal band, Nile.
Yes.
So Nile are technical death metal. Would you agree?
Oh yeah.
So did you hear their first album that came out in 1998, Amongst the Catacombs of Neferenka?
I definitely I didn't listen to it for this death metal list, but I did listen to the album years ago. Like, it's been a while though.
It's 33 minutes long. Looking at the track listing, most of the songs are around 2 or 3 minutes long. It's pretty intense. But what I like about this album is it sounds, like I said earlier, it sounds like they were listening to stuff like Deicide and Cannibal Corpse and going like, what if this was even more technical and more out there and more extreme? But this also has a very strong influence from like progressive rock, I feel, some like the interludes and stuff here and there. A track like Ramsey's Bringer of War is very like symphonic sounding, and I'm gonna butcher this, but the Haka Krieg Lied die Asserik, which is the worst German anyone's ever spoken in their life. I think that's the track. It's just like chanting and stuff with like this weird kind of it sounds like, I don't know what he's saying, but it sounds like he's like, it's like an invocation to the Egyptian gods to rain down on apocalypse on their enemies. And put it this way, Nile are to ancient Egypt what a Monomath are to the stereotypical view of Vikings.
Yeah, definitely.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite Nile album. That would probably be their third one. What's that one called again?
All I
In
oh go
hang on,
in
again.
the darkened shrines.
Yes, that's it, Reagan. Thank you. But it's the most unique one that makes me feel like, oh, this band, like for 1998, this band sound different. Their second album, Black Seeds of
Oh,
Vengeance, is pretty good.
hang on, Rubes. I'm just gonna have to pause you.
Okay.
Someone wants to come past and go through the door.
Okay.
I can do it out. Don't worry. I think we're gonna have to hurry this one up, Rubes, because I just realised we've been on for 2 hours.
Yeah, that's fine.
Might have to even put this into 2 separate parts, to be honest, if we're being
That's
as long
fine,
as
yeah.
it is.
Do we want to finish talking about Nile and then cut it there?
Well, I don't know, because we only got Behemoth, Job for the Cowboy, Suicide Silence, Dragons.
Well, why don't we talk about Behemoth next, and then we'll talk about the more deathcore kind of bands like Job for a Cowboy, Borderline on deathcore. Suicide Silence are absolutely deathcore. So why don't we save those 2 bands for the next part?
Okay, we're doing it out as in second part.
Yeah, okay,
Too.
yeah.
But the thing is, when we do the second part, it won't be very long. It's not much to go into.
That's true. Okay, well,
We can just do it all. Let's just do it all now, and I'll just split it in half.
Let's do that.
I can take out I'll take out this part, but what I do is the toilet break. I'll just use that as the indication to go into the second part instead.
Cool.
So it feels a bit more natural. Okay, we'll go into now anyway. Let's talk about In the Darkened Shrines, actually, since we're talking about that. I would like to.
Which is my favourite one. It has my favourite. Well, I don't know about my favourite Nile song. It's one of my favourites. Sarcophagus. Mostly because of that outro riff.
Amazing. It's probably up there with one of my favorites. I do really like that. I do think Slayer of the Gods was good. And I think that was a good homage to Candlemas.
Yeah, true.
So I think they did a good job with that. I do like all the symphonic elements.
Yeah.
Kind of saying.
Some of the stuff on like the title track, which depending on which version of the album is either one 18-minute song or it's split into 4 parts. But a song like Hall of Saurian Entombment, with this kind of like, it sounds like ancient horns being blown and this like percussion thing, and it sounds like you're getting an army ready for battle.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really cool. Obviously, I do love the Egyptian themes and H.P. Lovecraft mythos within the band. I feel like that's one of the things that attracts me to it. I really like Egyptology anyway. I think it needs to be fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So I won't go, obviously, it's not an Egyptology video, but I just want to mention I'm into that. I do like the fact of how they've added the symphonic elements into the band. It's not as prominent as someone like Septicus nowhere near, but it's still. I think it's the fact that they managed to add in symphonic elements without taking away any of the heaviness, and I think that's really cool. Yeah. Like, it's really well done.
I think one of my favourite moments on the album is the spoken word part in Unas, Slayer of the Gods.
Yeah.
He has taken the heart of the gods. It's so like, it's almost funny how intense it is. But it's just like, they play it live to this day. It's still part of their main set list. So,
yeah, it's great. It's a great song.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have to mention his guitar. Probably influenced by Vlad the Impaler, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah. Well, apparently, when they were first getting quite big, Dean, the guitar company, asked Carl Sanders from Nile, we want to make you a custom guitar. And Carl went, what? You mean like you do like anything? Like anything I want? If I want like fan scalloped frets and I want to measure them if they're a millimeter off, you have to do it again. And I went, yeah, we'll do that. And he went, could you do like a spike on my headstock? Yeah, cool. And he went, oh, okay. And they delivered it to him. It's got this fucking like 8-inch spike on the end of it. And he said that's the most difficult thing to get through airport security on tour.
Yeah, I mean, it's not inconspicuous. It's a bit inconspicuous, isn't it?
They apparently security guards always debate, is this a weapon?
It could be used as a weapon, let's be honest with ourselves right now.
Really hurt. It would sting a bit if you caught you with that, wouldn't it?
Oh. You could definitely impale some people.
Like,
Oh,
I've
let's
been
be
hit in the
honest.
head with a guitar before, but not one that looks like that. Fucking, I think that would just end my existence.
I will be unalive after that.
Yeah,
Definitely. Let's go
yeah.
to let's quickly touch on Behemoth's Demigod. Because I wanted 2 examples of death mixed with thrash, and then I wanted an example of death mixed with black, but being
Yeah.
more on the death side. Because I wanted to mention it because it's more. I put in the death metal one, not the black metal one, because this album I do feel like it's more death metal emphasized than black metal emphasized.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a great album, obviously. Now we know that you had a bit more of black metal, more of a black metal influence in the very early days with like Glom and all that. But this is a fantastic album nonetheless, and I think also a good gateway into both black and death if you are trying to get into those
Yeah,
genres.
yeah. It's my second favorite Behemoth album. The first one being The Satanist, because that album is just amazing, just for metal, regardless. I do love Demigod. I really love the track Slaves Shall Serve. Especially at the very end, it's so aggressive.
Yeah. Oh, and also we have the tie-in from Niall with Carl Sanders being featured as a guest on the album.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Was it Exul? Is that how you pronounce it? Exul?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah.
Something
I know
like
what
that.
you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And I like the fact that Before the Aeons Came is an adaptation of the poem by Algernon Charles Swinburne, I think it's called.
Mm.
And also, it's just a general landmark in Polish death metal, along with Nihility by Decapitated, which we
Yeah.
haven't put on the list, which I feel is a bit of a crime, but you know.
I mean, we also didn't do None So Vile by Cryptopsy, which for many is the Cryptopsy album. I'm really surprised we didn't do that one.
True.
But we'll have to get to
Non
it.
Survival is
some point.
amazing. I feel like I just have to mention at least one of their albums. Like I said, Nihility and the Demigod though are like the main 2 Polish death metal albums.
Yeah, that's fair.
And incidentally, I think they came out around about.
I think even if you don't like metal as well, I'd recommend Behemoth as a band to go and see.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I saw them headline Bloodstock a couple of years ago, and they are amazing live. They're
fantastic.
Entertaining to watch. It definitely feels like you're taking part in some sort of like satanic ritual as well, which is great.
Oh yeah, for sure. And no, I agree. They're a good band. Obviously, I know the singer's a bit weird at times. I think
he's all right, personally.
I think he's all right. I think he's fine. I think he likes to be a bit controversial. I remember I was a bit weird when you put on a shirt saying "Keep Antifa out of black metal," and I was like, "Be careful what you're doing. Are you stepping into territories?"
Yeah.
I know he isn't necessarily like considers himself to be right wing like that or anything, but like doing shirts like that, you are provoking. So be careful.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother subject, really. I don't really want to get into politics too much, but
no, I'm not going into the politics. It's just like you have to be careful. You're kind of edgy, you know what I mean, with that.
Admittedly,
I understand that.
Because I saw him wearing that T-shirt, I did kind of go like, "Oh, you want to be careful." Like that's a bit like, yikes.
I'm not against people criticizing Antifa to a degree. I think you're allowed to criticize anyone you want for any groups for any sort of reasons. But at the same time, you have to be careful of like there's a criticizing a group, and then there's at the same time you can go too far with it, and suddenly you start sounding like you're a part of another group. If you know what I mean. But at the same time, he hasn't given any other indication that he's in further deep into other groups. So I kind of keep it as like, okay, it's probably just him being edgy.
I think he is an advocate for just freedom of like thought and things. But it does get to a point where it's like, all right, fine, we get it. We know that Christianity is responsible for an awful lot of control and some atrocities throughout history. But also, if someone wants to be a Christian, that is their right, and you shouldn't take that away.
Also, I feel like politically, if you want to get into politics of it, to be honest with you, yeah, Christianity has had things done in its name for the wrong reasons. But at the same time, people have done the good things for the right reasons in the same name. It's a tool, like anyone. If you can use it for the right reasons, you can use it for the wrong reasons. it's like anything. Let's be honest with us. Do you really think if there wasn't Christianity, humans would have been not doing any of the atrocities? Of course they would.
Yeah.
Humans are shit, right?
I mean, I'm personally, I'm not anti-religion. I'm quite firmly anti-organized religion. I think that's where you need to just. It shouldn't be funded by the state. It shouldn't be exempt from tax. It shouldn't be a basis for laws and that, because it's like, I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. But,
I'm in this weird
you know.
ground though. Is that is it if you don't want to? I don't want it to be a part of the state, but I feel like by making it pay tax, it should have a say in the state, because the tax goes to the state. So I feel like this is the tricky part, right? It's kind of like, how do you deal with it? It's like how do you separate the taxation from involvement with the state? If that makes sense. I feel like,
I mean,
kind of established.
I pay tax. I'm not in the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think individually we all pay tax regardless of where you are as a religious leader within a religion itself. But at the same time, having the religion itself have taxation, I feel like can cause implications. I just feel like I agree with a wealth tax. Like if someone has a lot of wealth, and that wealth should be taxed to a certain degree, because it should not be hold the wealth in general. I agree with that in all forms, but at the same time, I feel like that should be separate from the religion itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to knock people who have a faith or believe in something. That's completely fine. It's more when you start saying like, well, it's like, it's like if you invite someone over for tea and they say, "Oh, my religion says I can't eat that." Oh, fair enough. Would you want something different then? It's when they go, "My religion says you can't do that." That's when I go, "Fuck off!" Like, no disrespect, but don't infringe on my liberties or other people's. And I feel like, I forgot where I was going with this now, but from the, someone who wants to believe in something, that's fine. But when you look at it, the other end of the spectrum, where it's like it's 2024, and we still have a king who got coronated in a Christian church, and they literally with straight faces go, "Oh yeah, you've been ordained by God." And it's like, what? That's a bit nuts, isn't it? I think
it's an interesting
bizarre.
one. I mean, I'm not. I am not an atheist anymore, but I do agree. Sometimes you have to question the roles of humans within the realms of that. I don't think really how that should work.
I had the debate because I'd sound probably agnostic, right? Because I don't know. I can't know the mysteries of the universe. I'm only a human.
Oh, that's fine.
But I've had the debate with someone going like, "Yeah, but I'm atheist because why would there be anything out there?" I mean, yeah, but you don't know that. Well, there probably isn't. Yeah, but you don't know. I
see what you mean.
Like, but we got to the root of it, and he was just like, "I don't like the idea of not knowing," and I said, "Well, why should you have to know everything? It doesn't matter. Like, in the grand scheme of the universe, the Earth is smaller than a microscopic speck. We don't matter. Like, it's fine." The sooner you realize that, I think, for some people that might be terrifying. For me, it's a bit reassuring. So I'm just like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Just enjoy life while you're here."
Yeah, I agree. You have to enjoy the ins and outs.
Yeah,
no, it's all good. I mean, I'm not going to go into why I believe in a God. I feel like that's a different conversation. But I respect everyone's beliefs. If you're Muslim, I respect you. If you're Christian, I respect you. If you're atheist, I respect you. If you're a respectful person to me, and I've met everyone from every background who can either be very forceful and fundamental, or just very open and nice about things, and doesn't take a religion to do either,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll go away from that now because we're too far into that, I feel. We should go to A Job for the Cowboy. Let's just go to there.
So they were a band that I avoided, admittedly, for quite a while, because I thought, oh, they're a bit like a mean band, right? There's no way you call your band Job for a Cowboy and you're not a stupid band. listening to their first album, which is called, let me get it up, Job for a Cowboy. Yeah, Genesis. Made me go, oh, they're actually really good. It's just death metal. Like,
Yeah. It's not as bad
it's
as
actually-
people make it out.
I liked it. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's got an interesting concept. I think the concept of the album pointed out to me the most because obviously talking about religion, it's like obviously it's about a chip and it relating with religion, isn't there? So I thought that was a cool concept, and it's obviously quite high ranking in terms of modern death metal records. Is it? I mean, it's okay. I like it. I don't think it's amazing. I think there's better. Like I couldn't listen to it all in one sitting. I feel, but I can listen to a few songs and enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't find myself rushing for it. But I listen to it. But you know what? For modern death metal, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think for modern death metal sounds is good, and it's got some good musicianship in there. I just wouldn't find me listening to it as much as other stuff. I feel.
Yeah.
However, I feel like this next album will probably be a bit higher on my listenable chart, which is The Cleansing by Suicide Silence.
Yeah, and
again,
I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, again, it's one of those bands where I'm like, Suicide Silence, aren't they like Asking Alexandria and Bring Me the Horizon, a bit of a scene band, as it were. Not knocking it. If you like it, you like it. But I never really got into that when they were really big, like 10, 15 years ago. I really didn't like any of that stuff. Their first album, The Cleansing, is actually really good. I quite enjoyed it. As far as deathcore goes, I rarely listen to deathcore. Very rarely, but Suicide Silence's first album is pretty damn good. Actually, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's great. I think because deathcore had a dirty name with it, especially because of some people in the genre, in terms of how good it is. I think it's the best death metal album in general. No, but I feel like as deathcore goes, it's probably the best deathcore album, and I think it's even better than Lorna Shore. I'll be honest with you. I know that might be a bit controversial in terms of deathcore.
Yeah, I used to really like the first Whitechapel album, The Somatic Defilement. Now I'm looking at it.
Yeah, Whitechapel's good.
It's a bit try hard. But then I agree with Lorna Shore. I actually think that the EP and Our Return to Nothingness was a lot better than the Pain Remains album. I kind of felt like as an album, it's a bit like, this is too long. An EP is better for that style of music, I think.
Well, I'll be honest, for me, what made me feel like this is better than Lorna Shore, not saying Lorna Shore aren't good, because they are, especially as modern fans go, but I feel like the production's a lot better on this. I feel like the production on the Lorna Shore, when you listen to their album, like the one you mentioned, it's too much. There's too much going on in the production. Like it's so big to the point of like everything's meshing together almost, and it's taken away the almost brutality of it to a degree. I don't know. Something about the production and the cleansing sounds a lot better. Yeah, it's a bit rawer, but I can hear everything a lot more clearly and a lot better at the same time. And I feel like it's not trying to hit me in the face with the production. It's relying more on the musicianship to hit me in the face. And I feel like that makes it better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to a point. Like Lorna Shore, when you put their music on, it is like, fucking hell, you're almost instinctively going for that volume knob to turn it down just a little bit. It's like, it's a bit much to turn down a bit. But then that's why I like it. That's why I like stuff like Devin, and why, not as a person, horrible person, but I really admire Phil Spector as a producer. It's that wall of sound thing. You can, something like that, you can hear all the stuff. There's just a lot of stuff, and it's all really loud. But that's kind of why I like Lorna Shore.
I mean, to be honest, it's not the loudness that's my issue. I just feel like it's more to do with, like, because I would argue the cleansing still has the wall of sound and still has a lot of loudness. It's probably just as loud as Lorna Shore, but there's room in the mix to hear everything, is despite it being loud. Where Lorna Shore doesn't really have it. It doesn't feel like it lets up any gaps in the sound at all. Which I like War. Like Cartwork by Carcass had a War sound of guitar, but the guitar sounds fantastic and clear. I just think Lorna Shore to me, I'm just not a big fan of the production. It's just something about the
That's
production
fair.
feels too crushed together that I just that I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the band's great and I think the musicianship's great and I do like their songs. It's just I'm not a big fan of the production and that's why I prefer this more. That's my personal reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, I find with like when I say Wall of Sound, I mean like that specific kind of like Devin Townsend, Lorna Shore sound, where it's like there's so much in the mix, there's no space. Every possible second has something happening, and often you will have multiple layers of orchestra, instruments, guitars, and different layers of vocals all at once.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. It's all clear. It's not necessarily muddy. Although some early Devin albums have some questionable mixing. There's just a lot of it, and it's a lot for your brain to process. And it's almost like it's like Marmite. You either like it or you don't. And some people don't like it, and the people who do like it will like it for the same reason people dislike it. Like my partner was saying that she's not keen on Devin's solo stuff because of how much there is going on, and my response was, "That's why I like it." So it's
everyone has a preference,
tastes.
don't they?
Yeah, it's definitely different preferences.
I completely respect it, but you know, as I said, I really like The Cleansing. It's probably my favorite deathcore album of all time.
I probably agree. Yeah, in terms of like a full-length album, yeah.
Definitely. And obviously rest in peace to Mitch. Sadly gone too young.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And seemed like a good guy, so can't fault him on that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna go into another album. This is probably one of my favorite albums of all time. It's Dragged Into Sunlight's Hatred for Mankind. I really wanted to talk about this band. Such an interesting band. The fact that no one actually knows who the fuck they are makes it even better.
I mean, they have a following, but it's so small. And I was just like,
but it's so dedicated at the same time. The fact that the actual band interacts with the fans on Reddit and answers their questions, and the fact that no one knows who they are and they all live in different parts of the UK, even though the band's meant to be formed in Liverpool, only one of the members were actually from Liverpool, and they keep adding new members to each album.
And they perform, they wear like masks and stuff, and their stage set is quite interesting. But they perform facing away from the audience, don't they? They perform with their backs to the audience.
Yeah, the whole time they perform back to the audience wearing the balaclavas or something, and then there's loads of mists on the stage, so no one can actually see them.
Yeah.
And no one knows who they actually are, if I remember correctly. No one knows if the names of the band members are actually even their names.
So they've only done 2 albums, sadly. I'd love to hear more stuff. I'd love to see them. I'm sure they're amazing live. This album, Hatred for Mankind. Everything from the artwork to the production it's incredible. It's one of the best death metal albums I've ever heard.
It is. It's fantastic. I think these genuinely really push the actual genre more so than the bands like you were doing deathcore and stuff. These guys actually pushed the genre to somewhere else. I don't know how they did it.
Scary
but they did
new places.
The fact of it genuinely feels like a murder scene, and it sounds like a murder scene. Like the fact that the samples are all from murderers.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, right? And I mean, you can argue they blend all forms of extreme metal, so I wasn't really even sure where to put them, but I felt like a death metal head looking for something innovative would just really like this, or if anyone who's into that sort of thing.
I recommended them to Chris, and because I assumed he'd heard of them, because Chris has heard every fucking band, and I said, "Oh, Dragged Into Sunlight," and he went, "Who?" And I went, "Oh, well, they're like kind of." He was like, "What do they play?" And I said, "Kind of blackened progressive death metal," and he just went, "Right, they're going on my list," because
nice.
They're
I
really,
feel
really
like
good.
I discovered them because I put them on the list. So I discovered them a while ago, and I absolutely fucking love them. I think it's one of my favorite. This is probably my favorite album on the list. I don't care what anyone says.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't know what my favorite death metal album is. It's really debatable what would count as a death metal album.
Well, it's debatable whether this is actually a death metal album in itself.
Yeah,
But I had to put it into somewhere, and I didn't really know where it landed, so I just decided to put it in the death metal one.
But
Really.
I guess
But you could argue it could be in black or it could be in whatever, really.
It appeals to a lot of different audiences, I think. But
Yeah,
it could almost be
exactly.
like post metal in some respects.
Yeah, definitely. It's got the post elements. I think using samples is interesting for the metal band too, especially at the amount they use. It's more uncommon in the genre. I mean, I suppose that maybe it's more of a gore grind influence because I know gore grind do that actually. Thinking about it, and I do like the shriek, reverberated vocals, almost like a malevolent spirit constantly trying to attack you.
It
I love it.
feels like the album itself is haunted by some sort of malevolent presence because it is an evil sounding album.
And it actually has evil aspects to it, like the intro, Boiled Angel, the intro on the album. That sample at the start is actually a sample of a real life victim being tortured.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh no.
So basically, there was a murder. It was a footage that was leaked on the internet. You don't see anything, but it's just a few seconds of a guy who was convicted for being a murderer who tortured women, of him basically shouting at one of his victims to basically obey his every command, and she's replying to it, and that's what the intro is of that song.
Yikes!
It's really fucking disturbing.
But
like, I think it actually is terrifying.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out as well that with a lot of these kind of extreme bands, in like death metal and that especially, it's not that they're glorifying this kind of aspect of humanity. It's like with Slayer, someone asked Tom Araya, if you're Catholic, right? Yeah. So why do you have songs like God Hates Us All? Why do you have like upside down crosses on the stage? And he was saying, we use provocative imagery like Satanism to shine a light on how fucked up humanity can be. And I feel like with Dragged Into Sunlight, they're kind of going like, we're showing you how dark of a place mentally human beings are capable of going to. And we shouldn't try to cover it up. To a point, we should protect certain sensitive people from seeing it. But it shouldn't be. We shouldn't pretend like it doesn't happen. We should be aware of like this kind of stuff could happen again.
Yeah, no, I agree. And
it's also interesting as well because I'm interested in like serial killers and stuff like that. Not as a kind of like, oh, this is entertaining. It's disgusting. They're evil people, but a lot of them, but evil or mentally ill or what have you. But it's fascinating what it tells you about the human condition.
I think, I mean, I can go into that a lot, but I'm not going to go into it. But I do find the idea. Basically, I see it as like how I use it as like a lesson for how to watch out for certain people. If that makes sense. It's like that's why I think a lot of women watch them, not because they like serial killers, it's because they want to know their next boyfriend doesn't end up being like one of the people on that TV. Does that make sense?
Maybe. I mean,
I feel like a lot of women want to innately protect themselves more because they know they're more vulnerable.
Sure.
To male aggression and what male ideas like that. So like, I feel like women are just more conscious of the idea that they're more vulnerable. Therefore, I need to know how to defend myself from these types of people. So understanding how they work makes it easier for them. I'm not saying that's always the case. Don't get me wrong.
I think for me, it's more people just find it fascinating why people would do that, why people would commit these atrocious acts.
But I think that's deep down innately. I think that's deep in us because we don't want it happening to us. I think that's why we're interested. It's more of a subconscious level to a degree. I think we naturally want to know how the evil works so we can avoid the evil. Does that make sense?
Maybe, yeah.
That's just a theory, though. Take that as you will. Anyway, also I have to mention that why are two of the members called T? Like both members have got the same letter.
Oh yeah.
Fucking weird. No fucking idea at that point. Let's go on anyway. I've gassed these guys, so let's go defend them to the animus. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, Why is there next? Have we kind of covered everything we wanted to cover today?
Well, we got Venom Prism, Blood Incantation, Cryptic Shift, and Gatekeeper left.
There's quite a lot then. Should we maybe save that for a more modern death metal episode then?
Yeah, we can go into like millennial death and maybe
Yeah.
explore them more there. I feel like we just mentioned the bands that are important in the whole genre, despite the fact of where they happened.
Yeah.
I feel like the next guys are more just good at doing the modern style of it, really, of things that have already been done.
I might have to chuck you a band called Frozen Soul as well, who also, because I feel like a lot of these bands is kind of old school death metal being revived and done again. Not done again. You know what I mean? It's a bit like an old school death metal revival thing going on right now. Bands like Venom Prison and Gatekeeper are definitely doing that sort of thing. So I think maybe the next episode we should talk about that kind of idea.
Yeah. We can carry on with that. We'll discuss it more in person maybe.
Cool.
Outside the video. But I think we'll just leave it at that for now. I'm quite happy to end it with Drag. It just unlike because they're fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's been good chatting as always about death metal and metal in general. Heavy subjects. That's why we call the podcast that. Yeah, if you've been watching, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We don't have many viewers, but the people who do watch every episode, we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I always do.
But I just like doing it. I just enjoy having these conversations and discovering new music.
Me too, actually. I really enjoy it as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you on the next video. You take care, Roops.
You too, buddy.